Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Evening. It's turning a little chilly right now across some areas, but temperatures will actually rise through the night. Tomorrow is going to be a very mild day, also pretty blustery. The mild conditions courtesy of these two weather fronts, or rather the air tucked in between them. Tropical air is spreading in from the west. Before they arrive, as I said, across parts of the east with clearer skies, it's turning a little chilly this evening, but temperatures rising through the night as that mild but increasingly cloudy weather pushes in. A wet evening for Scotland. The rain easing off here, though, as we go through the early hours. Bit of drizzle over hills elsewhere, but many places just dry and cloudy. 8 or 9 early on through the evening across the east, but by morning most places at double figures, and in parts of the west will start Thursday in the teens. We will start with a lot of cloud, and that won't really change much through the day. Rain at times across western parts of Wales, northwest England, mostly over the hills. Quite a wet day, though, across the Highlands and the Western Isles. Lewis and Skye in particular seeing a lot of heavy rain. Elsewhere, mostly just dry but drab. But gusty winds and very mild, 15, 16, perhaps even 17 Celsius. It will be blustery, however, particularly over northern England and Scotland and Northern Ireland. The winds staying pretty strong through Thursday evening as well. The rain pushing back a little further south into Northern Ireland, perhaps into southern Scotland as we head into Friday. But again, for most of England and Wales, it'll be dry on Thursday night. And boy, look at these temperatures for Thursday night into Friday morning. These temperatures are higher than the average maxima at this time of year. So a very mild start to Friday. Similar kind of day with rain in the northwest, heavy persistent rain. Quite gusty as well, although the winds will ease a touch during Friday compared to Thursday. Some rain at times for Northern Ireland. For England and Wales, well, a little bit of rain and drizzle, mostly over hills in the west. Some brightness in the east. But look at these temperatures, 15, 16, 17 degrees, exceptionally mild, particularly in Scotland.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, should we be sending illegal migrants back the very same day in a last-ditch bid to stem the Channel crisis? Westminster's toughest-talking MP thinks so and is sick to death of us footing the bill for their luxury hotel stays.
When I hear words like sourcing housing and getting extra hotel spaces for illegal immigrants, it leaves a bitter taste in my throat. When are we going to go back home and do the right thing and send them straight back the same day?
The Real World with Lee Anderson at 9:40, then Rod Liddle on why we should feel no guilt for sending male economic migrants back to Albania. He's uncancelled at 10:40. As nurses vote for a historic strike, prompting fears up to 1 million NHS workers could be absent this winter, is it morally wrong or perhaps even pointless for them to walk? I'll put that to my superstar panel of Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks and Ashley James at 10. As a police officer is injured in a lorry crash during their latest criminal action. Are Just Stop Oil a threat to life? Entrepreneur and everyman Thomas Skinner, who went viral for his traffic jam takedown of the eco-zealots, does battle with a duo from Just Stop Oil in the clash at 9:20. I'll get your verdict too.
We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. Florida is where woke goes.
There he is, Ron DeSantis. We'll be talking about him in just a moment. But back home, are the Conservatives sunk if Rishi Sunak commits to Gordon Brown's move of hiking the top tax rate to 50p? In my digest next, I urge the PM to abandon his whack the rich strategy before the party turns into Labour light. And as we just saw there, the dust is settling on the US midterms. So is a Trump comeback still a go, or has a barnstorming victory for common sense in the battleground state of Florida given Ron DeSantis the edge? Former Trump advisor Jason Miller and Peggy Grande, who served in the Donald's administration, weigh in as the race for the White House officially begins. Getting egged on a visit to York was the least of King Charles's worries today, as the controversial new series of The Crown finally dropped and millions watched shocking scenes of Prince Philip pursuing an affair. So how can Netflix justify airing hurtful, not to mention untrue, storylines so soon after her late Majesty's death? And how much longer can the hypocrite-in-chief Prince Harry stay silent? Well, Daily Telegraph columnist Celia Walden live on that at 10:20. Plus, we've got the newspaper front pages and Greatest Britain, Uni and Jackass on the way too. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. But the news first. Here on GB News, Polly Middlehurst up with the headlines.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. The Royal College of Nursing is urging the government to take action over pay or face disruption across the country. Earlier, the RCN announced a first national strike in its 106-year history, with 300,000 members voting in favour of walking out. The action's set to affect the majority of NHS employers, although emergency care won't be affected. Responding, the Health Secretary Steve Barclay said nurses' pay demands are out of step with the UK's current economic climate.
The key issue is one of fairness. We've offered £1,400. We've accepted in full the recommendations of the independent pay review body. We gave an increase last year above what most other public sector workers received. And we also need to recognise the economic circumstances in which we currently face.
Well, in other news today, the Prime Minister insists he didn't know about the specific concerns over Sir Gavin Williamson when he appointed him to his cabinet. The MP left his post last night saying allegations of bullying were becoming a distraction to the good work of the government. He denies any wrongdoing. During Prime Minister's questions today, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer criticised Sir Gavin and questioned Rishi Sunak's judgment. The Prime Minister said it was absolutely right that Sir Gavin had resigned.
The truth is simple. He's a pathetic bully. But he would never get away with it if people like the Prime Minister didn't hand him power. So does he regret his decision to make him a government minister?
Mr. Speaker, I obviously regret appointing someone who has had to resign in these circumstances. But I think what the British people would like to know is that when situations like this arise, that they will be dealt with properly. And that's why it is absolutely right that he resigned.
Meanwhile, the Home Secretary is urging police chiefs to focus on what she's calling common-sense policing and not politically correct distractions. Speaking at a conference in Westminster today, Suella Braverman said the public expects the police to be tackling crime and not debating topics such as gender on Twitter. She also urged the force to reconsider police action that could be seen as woke behaviour. A 23-year-old man has been arrested after throwing eggs at King Charles and Camilla, Queen Consort, in York. The incident happened as they arrived at York Minster to unveil a statue of the late Queen. It's understood a protester threw 3 eggs at them, all of which missed the royal couple narrowly. Several police officers at Micklegate Bar were seen restraining a suspect on the ground immediately after the incident. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News. Back now to Dan Wootton tonight.
My friend Alison Pearson started her always brilliant column in the Daily Telegraph today like this. I see that the government has come up with a daring new game. It's called stress testing the loyalty of Conservative voters until they finally snap. Well, folks, Budget Day on November the 17th might just be the moment that I snap. That's because the unelected Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, who I have not forgotten was forced upon us in a globalist Ramona coup, seem determined to transform the Conservative Party into Labour light. Gone is even the ambition to be a small state, low-tax party focused on economic growth. The boosterism of Boris and the aspiration of Truss, which I concede was implemented badly, have been replaced by Treasury orthodoxy, seeing us creep closer to socialism. Case in point, the widespread briefing today that the top tax rate could be hiked to 50p or the threshold lowered below the current £150,000 level. The whack the rich strategy might play well in short-term focus groups, but it breaks the 2019 manifesto promise that this government was elected on. And it also smashes the idea that the UK, under the Tories, supports wealth creators and ambitious folk who want to make money, grow businesses and employ staff in our great country. Of course, such a move would mean the Tories embracing the depressingly unambitious hard-left socialist policies of Gordon Brown, who hiked the 40p top tax rate introduced by Margaret Thatcher and increased it first to 45p and then to 50p. Even Tony Blair had understood the importance to the UK of keeping the top tax rate low.
I don't think that that would raise the money that people say, because I think it's important that people have an incentive to work hard and to do well, and because I don't think that the answer, for example, to the problems of youth unemployment is to take some money off those at the top and give a few more pounds in benefit to those at the bottom.
So let me get this straight. The Conservative Party in 2022, responsible for the biggest tax burden since World War II, is now far, far to the left of New Labour. How the hell did this happen? And by the way, what changed in a matter of weeks to both Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak, given they spent their leadership campaigns this summer campaigning for lower taxes?
Scheduled to increase, though, the corporation tax to be higher than Japan, America, France or Germany. I want to cut it to 15%, the lowest we're allowed to cut it to according to international agreements.
But I am going to cut taxes. Now, I am going to cut taxes. But I will cut taxes. But I am going to cut taxes. But we will cut taxes. Now, I will deliver tax cuts. And for the first time in 16 years in this Parliament, I will cut the rate of income tax. But I am going to cut taxes. Now, I will cut your taxes. Now, I will cut your taxes. Now, of course, I'm going to cut your taxes, but I'm going to do that responsibly, by being tough on public spending and by growing our economy.
But he's not going to now. Other tax rises to add to the reversal of the corporation tax cut reversal could include council tax hikes, a raid on capital gains tax, halving the tax-free allowance and freezing thresholds for income tax, national insurance, inheritance tax and pensions allowances. As despairing former Tory leader Sir Ian Duncan-Smith told the Daily Mail today, it would be completely ridiculous to raise taxes further now in order to fill a national hole in the finances in a few years' time. All you would do is plunge us into a deeper recession and the deficit will increase even further. If we go down that route, then our goose is cooked. Perhaps the most frustrating thing about why we're trying to fill a multi-billion-pound black hole in our finances is the lack of analysis about the real reason we got here. It's not the Truss mini-budget, and it's not even the war in Ukraine. Nope, it's the fact the government, pressured by the mad scientists, big pharma actors and deranged MSM, shut down the economy for nearly 2 years while paying most people's salaries for a virus with a 99% survival rate. To respond now, my superstar panel. Former editor, current columnist for the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. So, Dawn Neeson, I think I'm going to snap because, actually, can we even describe the Conservative Party anymore as Labour light? Because they're now to the left of New Labour, at least.
They're not even Labour light, they're just Labour, aren't they? And if you listen to Keir Starmer this week in particular, he's been actually talking sense. He was talking sense on immigration. I don't believe in open borders. For once he had an opinion on things. And he was talking sense on tax raises as well. He's sounding, and I never say this about Keir Starmer, he's saying more decisive and conservative than Conservatives, and they are sounding like Labour. This is an utter mess, and you're so right to say that if we didn't, why didn't we see this coming during the pandemic, Dan? I mean...
Well, we did.
We did.
We did. We were speaking about it. We were talking about an economic catastrophe coming. I remember us having these conversations, Dawn.
Free money, but it was our money. And I refused to even go and eat out to help out because I thought, well, it's just my money in the end they're spending.
No, me too.
At some point, I'm going to have to pay it back.
Me too.
So this is just wrong. I mean, the fact that Tony Blair had a lower, higher tax rate than we're going to have now is just, it's just shocking, isn't it?
Because, Adam, I feel like we're giving up. We're giving up on being an ambitious country. And sure, the way that Liz Truss delivered her mini-budget without the requisite spending cuts required was wrong. But I am absolutely resolute that the ambition for growth and the ambition to be a low-tax society and really encourage people to succeed was the right one.
We need to stimulate growth, and higher taxes are not going to stimulate growth. You know, as a businessman on the ground, I'm not a big businessman, I'm a small businessman, but I can tell you now that higher taxes are going to leave us in a deeper and longer recession. You know, why would a high earner want to come to this country and give half of their money away in tax? You know, I'm not going to get to that level, so it's not going to affect me, but it's going to affect it's going to affect many people. You know, my customers are worrying about cost of living crisis and such. It's, you know, I'm really depressed about the future of this country under Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt, and there's no chance they're going to get a vote from me. And most Tory voters that I speak to are saying the same. They're either going to stay at home, they can't vote for Labour, they can't cross that line, but they might go to Reform. And, you know, this week we've seen Richard Tyson, the Reform Party, are making the right noises, Dan.
And he was on this show last night, actually.
It looks to me like the Tories want to lose the next election.
It's a cunning plan, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Ashley James, the issue with the top tax rates is that everyone seems to get behind it because it sounds great, doesn't it? Yeah, let's tax the rich. But actually, when you go through history, when you look at the evidence, hiking that top tax rate, actually what it does is drive down economic growth. It makes this country poorer. It makes rich people either hide their money offshore or spend less money or hire less folk. So actually, this is a massive own goal for the Conservative Party, both in terms of ideology, but also in terms of growth.
I think what's difficult is, look, there is a sort of global recession, and if it was we are all in this together, like it was meant to be with the pandemic, we are all in this together, we are all going to have to tighten our purses and make cuts. But the thing is, they're not doing things like changing the non-dom status, which would save £3.2 billion. And a lot of the mess that we're in, and the reason they're trying to fill this hole, is because of Tory mismanagement. I could list off so many things. You know.
Don't, because we're talking about this top tax rate.
But what
do you want the top tax rate to go to 50p? Do you want rich people to give 50% of everything they earn back to the state?
I think everybody should be doing their bit, but also what my issue is, because I personally wouldn't mind paying more tax if our public services were running effectively and were well funded, but they are literally on their knees. Like, the whole of Britain is broken, whether you look at the NHS, the cost of childcare.
Yeah, but it's not about funding, is it? Because
but it is,
you cannot say the NHS is not well funded. You cannot say that. It has had tens of billions of pounds extra funding a year. It's badly run. It needs complete root and branch reform. But the problem is, I feel like what we do now, the solution to every problem is, let's chuck more money down the black hole of the NHS. And Dawn, it's not working.
Well, I mean, it's not just, I mean, going back to what Ashley was saying, it's not just the Conservative Party responsible for that. I mean, the GDP spend on the NHS has been the same for the past Labour government and for the Conservative government. So we are throwing money. It's the fifth biggest employer in the world.
But Dawn, isn't that the key point, though? The Conservative Party is meant to have a different philosophy. It's meant to be about a small and efficient state and giving individuals the right to earn their own money, to keep as much of their own money as possible, and then spend it how they choose.
That's how you do. As we've all just said, that's how you drive economy. That's how you drive businesses. Because you are going to say you're going to have rich people not just hiding their money, not just putting it offshore, but leaving the country.
Yeah.
We've had this before. We had it when the tax rate was very high, and rich people just left the country.
And by the way, that 50p tax rate didn't work, did it?
It didn't.
It didn't raise lots more money.
And who suffers the most when the country is really down on its uppers? It's the poorest in society. So they're the ones.
It's the working classes.
But Dan, they U-turned all this furore about fracking and saying that they had to stick to the 2019 manifesto because that's what they'd promised, so they U-turned on the fracking. Now...
Yeah, do they care about the 2019 manifesto?
Right, so
they're
going against all the tax rise. It suits, it suits them to do this. This is a mess.
They think it suits them to do this, but actually, I worry that the soul of the Conservative Party is being lost.
Why don't we go after Amazon and Starbucks and people like that?
They keep breaking manifesto promises, and also they keep U-turning. I feel like no matter which way you vote, you just don't know what.
This is emotional turmoil. It's been emotional toil for turmoil for the pensioners who are wondering what's going to happen. It's been emotional turmoil for the hard-working folk who have no idea what tax bracket they're going to be on for years to come while they're trying to plan what they're going to do. It's been emotional turmoil for business owners like you, Adam, who have no idea about what sort of support's going to be given after this winter. But the point for me is that if the Conservative Party walks away for the fundamental reason it's in government, which is actually to get the government out of our life, not for us to spend 50% of what we earn. And it's a philosophical thing. And I know anyone who earns over £150,000 is very privileged. But this is wrong for the Conservative Party to go down an ideological route which is about punishing the rich, because what that does is it slashes ambition.
But let's not forget that poor people are also being punished, and I feel like the issue with the Conservatives is they seem to have a lack of understanding or empathy about what real people are going through. Raising council taxes, where are people going to get this money from? And we constantly hear they just need to get a better paid job.
But you know what? And I'm going to make this
money.
final point, though. The disgrace of all of this is that ordinary good folk were banned from working by this government for 2 years. They were forced to stay indoors.
Some of us are still in debt. Some of us still paying bounce-back loans.
Well, of course, but these folk didn't want to... Well, maybe some did because they maybe enjoyed the furlough scheme. But actually, most people didn't want to be locked in their homes taking government money. No. And the fact is, the scientists got it wrong and the government shouldn't have listened to them. This country could have been opened up within 12 weeks. I mean, personally, I never think we should have locked down. I think there should have been a voluntary system. But the fact that we were still dealing with COVID restrictions 2 years after is just insane.
And Dan, one final point, £113 billion in benefits fraud during COVID.
Yeah.
We had that would be a long way now to not having to mess with the...
And let's not forget 11 billion because Rishi Sunak failed to insure government debt.
Oh, his missus could write a cheque out for that and not notice.
I can't think of one reason to vote for this Conservative government anymore. I can't think of one reason.
Well, at least
I won't be voting for Labour, but I can't think of one reason to vote for these now.
Rishi Sunak does wear nice shoes. On building sites, very expensive ones, granted, but...
Don Neeson, Adam Brooks, Ashley James, my superstar panel, they're here all night. But coming up, should we stand firm on migrants and send them back the very same day they arrive? Westminster's straight-talking Tory thinks so. We'll explore the real world with Lee Anderson at 9:40. But first in the clash. After a police officer is injured in a lorry crash during their campaign of terror, are Just Stop Oil a threat to life? Entrepreneur Thomas Skinner, he went viral actually for railing against these eco-zealots, comes face-to-face with a Just Stop Oil duo next. Live in the studio. My goodness, this is going to be interesting. I want your opinion, though. Dan at gbnews.uk on the email. Tweet me at gbnews. Our poll running there too. The results and the clash straight after the break.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Time now for The Clash. It's, quote, only a matter of time before someone is killed by Just Stop Oil's criminal activity. That's the stark warning from a police chief today after one of his officers was knocked off his motorcycle and injured while responding to the Green Militia's campaign of terror. The stricken officer had been trying to implement a rolling roadblock on the M25 to ease traffic when two lorries crashed and knocked him off his bike. He was taken to hospital, but it's hoped he'll make a full recovery. Now, the middle-class eco-terrorists closed several stretches of Britain's busiest motorway for a third day in a row as they continue to make hard-working Brits suffer in the name of their unhinged crusade. A furious Essex police chief, BJ Harrington, told The Telegraph, "I think it is only a matter of time before somebody gets killed. The only way this is going to stop is if Just Stop Oil, frankly, grow up and realise they are putting people's lives at risk." So do you agree? Is Just Stop Oil a threat to life? Let me know your thoughts by emailing me at dan@gbnews.uk. You can tweet me at gbnews, where we have our poll running too. But first, joining me live in the studio now, Just Stop Oil spokespeople Gabby Ditton and Sam Johnson, who are going head-to-head with the entrepreneur and everyman, former Apprentice star Thomas Skinner, who went viral with this takedown of the eco-zealots yesterday.
We're sitting in traffic, we ain't moving, we're only trying to go to work. Come on, guys, have a think about what you're doing. You're causing carnage. There could be an ambulance coming up here with someone who's severely ill and needs to get to the hospital. They're not going to get through. It's a joke.
So, Gabby and Sam, can you just hold up your hands for me? Can I have a look at your hands? You must have washed them, because I'm surprised there's not the blood still on your hands. Because you must now accept the blood of people whose lives you are putting at risk, including those people in those vehicles today, Sam.
We shouldn't have to even be doing this. Like, we have
But
tried...
you are doing it. Do you accept, Gabby, you are putting people's lives at risk?
But we will stop as soon as the government says no new oil licences. It's as simple as that.
So can I say one thing? Why are you attacking the general public? Listen, we're just trying to go to work, earn a living, yeah? A lot of people are hand to mouth. They're trying to go to work and you're stopping them. People, it's hard times, cost of living's gone up. People are going, they're getting no money, getting no money, not going... You know, why aren't you sitting outside the Chinese embassy? Why are you affecting the working class people? But why are you affecting everyday people that are trying to get a living, that are trying to go to work? It's not fair. You need to stop what you're doing. Well, then why are you doing it?
Because
I don't want to scream and shout.
Everything else. The reason that Dan has got us on the show today is precisely because we're on the M25. If we hadn't been doing stuff like this, we don't even get...
Gabby, no, it's not.
We've never been invited on the show
about the so-called climate emergency all the time. I just do it
so-called
in a
climate emergency. It's so
way.
Dangerous.
We can talk here. Basically, we've had an action in April and we went straight for the oil industry, and the media didn't...
Silence.
So why are you stopping working class people going to work? Why are you doing that?
Because it's proportionate
what have we
to the
done?
scale of what we're trying to prevent.
No.
It's completely proportionate.
Why are you affecting the everyday people? If you want to listen, everyone knows that we need to do better for the environment. Everyone knows that, yeah?
I don't accept that people have been told the truth about what's happening.
I understand that, but what you're saying, why don't you get people on board? Why are you stopping every single person just trying to pay for their family, keep a roof over their head? You are ruining people's lives. Honestly, it's terrible what you're doing.
I don't accept that people have been told the truth about what's happening. I don't accept that.
Let me bring you some facts,
Yeah.
OK, given that you seem to want facts. Now, I think Thomas has made a very good point. Why the hell are you targeting us and our government, and you're not targeting the countries that actually are the problem here? So are you aware... Sam, are you aware... Let me give you this fact and then you can respond. Are you aware that China is behind more pollution in just 8 years than the UK was since the Industrial Revolution? So China has pumped out 80 billion tonnes of carbon emissions from 2013 to 2020. We have pumped out 78 billion tonnes over 220 years.
So should we just die
we have reduced our emissions faster than any G7 country, and we're now responsible for under 1% of the world's CO2. So what are we doing wrong? Why are you not protesting China?
We are accelerating our fossil fuel production. Over 100 fossil...
You're causing more traffic, right? So can I just tell you an example, right? On Monday, yeah, one of my drivers sat on the M25 for 5 hours, then's got to go back out tomorrow, so I've got to fill another tank of diesel up to pay for his van, another day's wages I've lost. You've got to understand, you're causing more emissions.
We are talking about the what, actually, right now, because you are putting lives at risk. And actually, I want to play you both, Gabby and Sam, a clip from BBC Essex yesterday. So the caller... This breaks my heart, actually. Tony Banbury missed his father's funeral.
It's terrible.
Because you blocked the M25. So I want you to have a listen to the long-lasting psychological damage you were causing people.
I was actually due to be a pallbearer on my father's coffin along with my son. And we both got that taken away from us. There was a sense of how dare they, but someone that I don't know has taken that ability for me to say farewell to my father away from me, and I will never, ever forgive these people for what they have done to me.
What do you want to say to Sam?
I'd like to speak now. I'd like to say so sorry for his loss and his family's loss, and I honestly feel terrible that, like we say, we ruin people's days, and that's true, but...
No, you're ruining people's lives. You're ruining people's lives, not days, lives.
No, I'm saying, but with this is a poignant moment in this man's life, in his family's life.
He will never forgive you for this. He will never forgive you for this. He will never forgive you for this. And do you not understand what you're doing? You're turning off the British public, off your cause.
The evidence, Dan, suggests that that's not the case. We might be turning people away from Just Stop Oil, but we're not turning people... People are not going to allow their children to starve to death quicker because they don't like what Just Stop Oil are doing. That's not what the evidence suggests. They might be against Just Stop Oil, but they're not against action on the climate crisis.
There's also no evidence that we are going to starve to death, yes?
Oh, my goodness. This is...
Dan, we've lost a third of our wheat. We stand to lose half a potato harvest. If we don't get enough water this winter to fill the reservoirs, we stand to lose at least half of our fruit. There's massive food shortages in the UK and around the world. So we have to take
Your viewers are not
starvation.
stupid, Dan. They know that there's a climate crisis and
they're
you're
not
not helping.
Dan.
And they can see through your rubbish.
Dan, you're an
That's what they can
you're an
do.
environmentalist.
I am.
So do you ever have moments where you kind of wonder and you get really scared about the upcoming future and the near future, the next couple of years?
No.
Why not?
Because I am so proud of what this country has done to lead the world in terms of transformation.
In greenwashing.
No.
It leads the world in greenwashing.
And by the way, remember, I've been environmentalist since the 80s when I was told that I was going to die in New Zealand because of the ozone hole. And you know what? Technology came along and we fixed it. And that's what we do. But I want you to be honest about your agenda. I want you to be honest about your agenda because what you're actually asking of the British people, right? And I want you to be honest about this.
It's for us to come together and deal with this problem.
Yes, but what you're
We're
asking for
no
is you're
new
asking
fossil
for
fuel licenses.
ordinary
It's very
British people
simple.
to give up eating meat. You are asking them to never travel on planes because that is the reality.
What are people
of
willing
your
to do
agenda.
to save the lives of their children is what we're asking people to do. And you're laughing because this is where we're
Can I just say one thing, yeah? You're going to kill people before it gets there because they ain't going to have no money to feed their children because they can't get to work. Do you know what I'm saying? I'd rather make sure that my family have got food on their table, but how can hundreds of thousands of people do that if you're stopping them going and earning money?
We roll out renewables, we windfall tax the 170 billion
We're
pound
doing
profits.
it.
We're not.
But it has to be done at a safe rate. Look at what people are facing over the next few months. We need to frack. We need to do things in the short term in order to protect ourselves and not be reliant on bad actors like Russia and Saudi Arabia for our oil.
We concentrate on what we're doing. New oil licenses in the North Sea, they won't come to fruition for 10, 15, 20 years. That's in the future. We have 8 years' worth in licensing. We just transition.
We need to come out of COP.
What we're doing is enough. We've reduced our emissions faster than
not enough.
You're lying, Dan. You're lying.
Well, then I'm not. They are facts.
We need to come out of
And what about China? What are you going to do about China? What are you going to do about China?
Licenses. Is it like what do you mean? What am I going to do about China? I
This
live
is
here.
a global problem.
This is where exactly we need to work together to
amount for 1%.
Protest in China.
1% of the world's emissions come from the UK, yeah? We are right down the scale. China, Russia, USA, yeah? We are so small. We are so small.
Go to shit.
You're making the country go to shit. You're making the country go to shit at the moment.
Basically, it is a world problem. You're right there. You're right. What we need to do when
you need to get off the roads and let people get on with their lives. That's what you've got to do, mate. You've got to calm down.
When the government gives us what we want, we will.
Will you be happy when someone dies?
Make a meaningful statement.
Will you be happy when someone dies?
Of course we won't be happy.
Well then, what are you doing? Someone who died today.
We'd be devastated.
I just wanted to finish, Sam, and I'll let you respond off the back. But you were actually humiliated on TV this morning by Susanna Reid on Good Morning Britain. So let's have a watch, and then you can respond.
I was actually due to be a pallbearer on my father's coffin along with my son, and we both got that taken away from us.
Have the audacity to come on here and say that we're completely distracted, we're not talking about the issues. We talk about them every single morning, Sam. You're not getting people on your side, including people who would naturally be sympathetic to your cause. Sorry, and I'm going to end it there because you've already said you don't watch and you don't care. Sam, thanks very much indeed. And Fraser, thanks very much indeed.
So that's Susanna Reid. She is a lefty liberal who would be supportive of your cause, and even she shut you down because she's so angry.
She was angry, and Dan, my problem is I was too honest, and I'm an honest guy. I said no. I didn't lie to her and say, yes, I watched that show. I got better things to do than watch that show in the morning.
So, Sam, if you're honest...
I was honest, and she got slighted. We've got this climate problem around the whole world. We need to act. We really need to act. And she gets slighted because I said...
You're going the wrong way about, Sam, or you are. Listen, Sam, if you're an honest man like you say you are... If you're an honest man like you say you are... Do you think what you're doing now is the right way forward? No, yes or no? Yes or no?
I do absolutely believe it's the right thing to do.
So you think what you're doing is right at the moment, yeah?
Absolutely. At this point in history, in 2022...
Do you know what? You will be on the wrong side of history because people are
Well, time will tell, Dan. Time will tell.
People are going to die, and you will have that blood that I got you to search for on your hands at the start of the interview.
And what would you suggest us do?
I'll tell you what.
Get off the motorways and let people get on with their lives.
Get people get on with their lives and focus on bringing international attention to China, because China is the problem. The UK is not the problem. But look, we've got to move on. That was Just Stop Oil spokespeople Gabby Dixon
Thank you for
and
having
Sam
us.
Johnson. Thank you both.
Thanks a lot.
It's a tough environment. And also thank you too to the entrepreneur and everyman And The Apprentice star, love that show, Thomas Skinner. So who do you agree with? Are Just Stop Oil a threat to life? Winston on Twitter says, Just Stop Oil is a terrorist organisation and should be prescribed as such. I've been saying that for a long time. If you look at the 2000 Terrorism Act, they meet the definition. Kent says, no, they are not a threat to life. The oil corporations are, though. From Louise, they are selfish, arrogant, and seem to be under the illusion that their cause takes priority over everyone and everything. These entitled eco-terrorists need to get off the roads and get back to work and contribute to the economy instead of causing chaos and heartache to people. And your verdict is now in. 92% of you agree that Just Stop Oil is a threat to life. Just 8% of you saying they're not. Now, coming up, after the red wave in America turned out to be a red ripple, is a Trump comeback still a go, or has the landslide victory of anti-woke Ron DeSantis set him up to be America's next president? Will former Trump advisor Jason Miller and Penny Grande, who served in the Donald administration, give their expert analysis soon. But first, as the illegal migrant crisis threatens Britain's national security, is it time to get tough and send arrivals back the same day? We'll be joined by Westminster's toughest MP as we explore the real world with Lee Anderson straight after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panelists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
It's time for The Real World with Lee Anderson, Westminster's toughest talking MP. Now, this week, our very own King of the North gave a much-needed reality check to the House of Commons on the Channel crisis. In a powerful exchange with Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick, Lee urged the government to ensure those who arrive here legally don't get too comfortable. Look.
When I hear words like sourcing housing and getting extra hotel spaces for illegal immigrants, it leaves a bitter taste in my throat. When are we going to grow a backbone and do the right thing and send them straight back the same day?
In sourcing accommodation for migrants, we should be guided by both our common desire for decency, because those are our values, but also hard-headed common sense.
But guess who wasn't happy? Anna Soubry. Remember her, that ultimate Tory wet who left the party over Brexit? Well, she was furious. And she tweeted, "The utterly odious Lee Anderson is desperately fishing for votes in the deepest, murkiest bottom of the political pond because he knows voters in Ashfield are going to boot him out come the next general election." So, Lee, here's your chance to respond to Anna Soubry.
Well, I think Anna needs to jog her memory. It was her that was booted out by the good people of Broxtowe a few years back in the general election. Look, it's good to see that I'm living rent-free in Anna's head at this moment in time. She's been quite vicious on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter, Dan, but quite vicious over the past few years.
Do you know what? Your life will be so much happier if
it's a lot better. But she's been attacking me on Twitter. Look, she's not living in the real world. We know that. She's a has-been. And I genuinely think that some people should be breathalyzed before they go on Twitter. And if there was, she wouldn't be making remarks like that.
Now, Lee, in terms of your comments, this has to start happening, doesn't it? I mean, if there is any sense from these Albanian human trafficking gangs that they can keep getting people in, they're going to keep pumping.
I make no excuses, Dan. I'm not going to sit here and blame the French, like you seen in that clip. I'm not going to blame the ECHR. I'm not going to blame anybody but that place, Parliament. That's at fault. We're letting thousands and thousands of people in every single month
Tens
now.
of thousands.
Tens of thousands, 10,000, 12,000 Albanians. There's no excuse. I keep saying it. I feel like the weirdo in the room sometimes. As soon as they get here, send them straight back the same day. There is no excuse. Look, I've asked somebody, his senior position in government, what would be the consequences of sending people back the same day if we break international law. We just don't do that. We're British. Sorry. We owe our British people. We're here to defend our shores and our borders, and they should go back the same day. And the first duty of a government is to protect our borders, and we're failing.
And arguably, when this has really worked, if you look at Australia or now what Maloney's doing in Italy, arguably, Lee, they actually shouldn't set foot on British.
They shouldn't. They're breaking the law as soon as they get here. As soon as they get off their boats, they're breaking the law. They're criminals, you know. Why are they leaving France, Dan? Why are they leaving a safe country? They're living in tents and cardboard boxes in France. The reason they're coming here is for the draw. It's the pull. It's the promise of being picked up, put in a 4-star, 5-star hotel, and then eventually dispersed out into the community. Well, I tell you what, my community in Ashfield are not happy about this at all.
No, I know. And this is, I think, an issue the Conservative Party has to solve if you want to have any chance.
They have to solve it. You know, the promise, you know, one of the reasons I joined the Conservative Party and stood as a candidate was to protect our borders, was to control immigration. And so far, we've failed. Like I say, I make no apologies. We've got to get much tougher, much quicker.
No, indeed. Now, look, this is the story in the real world that people care about, but in your little Westminster village, everyone's talking about this bloke, Gavin Williamson. Doesn't seem like a very nice bloke, but I did find this very ironic. Angela Rayner. Now, remember, she called all of you guys scum. You know, this is a woman who I think has probably the most nasty rhetoric out of anyone in Parliament, but she's decided to get all pearl-clutching about this.
Look, there's no place for bullies in Parliament or in the upper house, in the House of Lords either. So I don't think that he should be holding a senior position, whether that's in the Lords or whether that's as an MP.
I mean, irony there, surely, Liz.
Irony. I mean, that should come with a warning notice on it, Dan. I mean, that could possibly end up being in government at the next general election. Let's hope not. But Tory scum, this phrase that we've heard from Angela, in the chamber, I was there at the time, actually, it sort of slips off the tongue very, very easily from some Labour MPs, and I think it's a bit rich when they talk about standards. You know, I did raise this in Parliament a few months back about the standards of some Labour MPs. I asked, I think it was Annalise Dodds, how many Labour MPs have been in prison over the past 10 years. I think it was 7.
And what about Gavin Williamson? I mean, did you deal with him at all? Is he a good guy, bad guy? What's your view?
I've always got on really well with Gavin. When I first got elected, he made me feel incredibly welcome. Look, he's a mover and a shaker within the party, we know that. But listen, Dan, seriously, I looked in my inbox for the past 2 weeks. I have not had one single email on Gavin Williamson. People in the real world do not give a toss.
No, this is a Westminster bubble story. Look, finally, I wanted to ask you about this. I was quite shocked, actually. The SNP backbencher, Michelle Thompson, has been condemned for wearing a pro-independence poppy at Hollywood. Now, she claims she was only using the Yes badge because she didn't have a safety pin to hand, but critics have branded the move an insult to veterans in an attempt to politicise remembrance.
It is disgraceful. You know, just for a few days once a year, the whole of the UK come together to remember our glorious dead. It's just a shame that certain people like that can't respect, you know, what happened all those years ago. Our servicemen, servicewomen, civilians gave their life up. They're always trying to make this silly, cheap political point. They need to grow. Look, I don't like giving them airtime, Dan, because they are oxygen thieves.
Well, on that note, there it is, Westminster's toughest talking MP, Lee Anderson. Thank you, Lee. We'll speak next week. But coming up, as nurses vote to strike for the first time ever, is it morally wrong for essential care workers to walk out on patients? My superstar panel return to debate that after 10. But first, as the midterms come to a close and all eyes turn to the next presidency, is the Trump comeback still on? Or has his anti-woke rival, Ron DeSantis, been given the boost he needs? Well, former Trump advisor Jason Miller and Peggy Grande, who served in the Donald administration, give their expert analysis as the race for the White House kicks off straight after the break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Tomorrow's newspaper front page is hot off the press in just a moment, but first, as the dust settles on the US midterm elections, is a Donald Trump comeback still on the cards? Firebrand Florida government Ron DeSantis' barnstorming victory for common sense last night puts him in pole position to challenge Trump for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024.
We saw freedom in our very way of life and so many other jurisdictions in this country wither on the vine. Florida held the line. We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. Florida is where woke goes to die.
What a speech! Trump, meanwhile, went on the attack against DeSantis just hours after that emphatic victory. He told reporters, "I would tell you things about him that won't be very flattering. I know more about him than anybody, other than perhaps his wife." So, which juggernaut Republican will be bidding for the White House in just a couple of years' time? I'm delighted to be joined now by former senior Trump advisor and the CEO of Getter, Jason Miller, and the former executive assistant to Ronald Reagan, and she was a staffer in the Trump administration, Peggy Grande. Great to have you both here. So, Jason Miller, I mean, as a Trump man, this didn't really work out as you hoped last night, right?
So we didn't have as big of a red tsunami as maybe we had hoped.
Yeah.
Maybe it was more of a smaller red wave. But here's the thing that we can't bury the lead. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, the Democrat, who in the U.S. is about as popular as Meghan Markle is in the U.K., she's out. She's out of the job. She won't be Speaker. Republicans are going to take back the House, and we're going to go to a runoff in Georgia to see if we can capture back the Senate. Look, there's no such thing as ugly wins or pretty losses. The fact of the matter is we get the win with the House and the Senate. Those are big wins.
Peggy, are you still backing Trump after last night, or are you actually thinking that Ron DeSantis could be the best hope to unseat Biden?
Well, thank you for having me on. And unlike the Democrats, I think the Republicans have a wonderful opportunity, whether it's Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, or a number of candidates that are being floated around. These are people who love America. They're great patriots. They want to make America great. They're America first type candidates. And so I don't think the Republican Party can go wrong. The Democrat Party certainly is going to have a bigger problem. And we all should be celebrating Ron DeSantis, his huge win last night. Florida is a state that historically has been purple. He has turned it competitively red, and we should all be celebrating that. That and the wins, big wins in Texas, have given us 2 of the 3 largest reliable states now red, which makes us very competitive going into 2024, even up against the behemoth of California, the largest state.
Do you know what? I so agree with you, actually, and it really makes me a little bit sad. I know it's not going to happen, but I would love to see a Trump-DeSantis ticket, you know? Wouldn't that be so powerful? But Jason Miller, it was interesting. Nigel Farage here on the show last night, he's out in Arizona with Carrie Lake, you know, big news star of the Republican Party, likely to become the Arizona governor. He predicted that she will become Trump's running mate. Have you heard rumours to that effect, Jason?
So I wouldn't say so much that I've heard rumors, but I've said very clearly and loudly, I do hope that President Trump picks Carrie Lake to be his VP pick. I think Carrie Lake is a superstar. Once the rest of the votes come in Arizona, she'll clearly win the governor's race there. She is absolutely my favorite candidate of the cycle, set the world on fire. She is going to be a primetime player, so I'm very excited about Carrie Lake. There are some other fantastic up-and-coming Republican candidates that Trump supported as well. J.D. Vance in Ohio, Ted Budd in North Carolina. So the whole big group of new Republicans that are coming in that very much will vote and behave following Trump policies as opposed to the policies and positions of, say, establishment Republicans of the past.
Peggy, are you concerned at all, though, that there might be amongst independent Americans and swing voters a little bit of a Trump turnoff at the ballot box? Because that's what a lot of analysts say that last night's results suggest.
Well, I think 2 more years of the Biden administration, and they will be much more focused on policy than personality. And Donald Trump's policies are inarguably ones that have benefited America and, frankly, the world. A strong America had made a strong world under Donald Trump, and we see the vacuum of power that exists with the Biden administration. And so maybe some people don't prefer his personality, but I think after 2 years of Joe Biden, more in the White House, the policies, whether it's Donald Trump or another advocate for freedom here in America, like our strong Republican candidates, I think we're going to be in a really good position going into 2024.
Now, Jason Miller, you were obviously a former advisor to Trump. You're still very much, in a lot of ways, in that Trump world. I know you're one of those folks saying, look, he's got to get in this race early. So is that what he's going to do Tuesday night in Mar-a-Lago? Do you think he will officially declare that he is launching his campaign for the Republican nomination?
Great question, because I have been an early advocate of President Trump getting into the race early, locking down the Republican Party and setting his sights on Biden. Although I'm advising the former president to hold off until after this runoff a month from now. Make sure we finish the midterms. That's what we set out to do, is going to win the midterms, get back the House and the Senate. We have to put all of our efforts behind Herschel Walker and get this done, because if get the win with Herschel Walker, get the Senate, then I think there'll be great things. So hopefully the president holds off and maybe we look at a December announcement. And Joe Biden, Dan, I got to tell you, just did a press conference a few minutes ago before we did this segment, and he was asked by Zeke Miller of the Associated Press if he would do anything different in the next 2 years of his presidency than he did from the first 2. And Joe Biden's response, nothing. Literally nothing that Joe Biden would do different, not following the Easter Bunny around or shaking hands with the air or
Peggy,
walking into bushes, nothing.
Peggy, he can't even stay awake. Peggy, I mean, this is going to be a painful 2 years, not just for America, but for the Western world, right?
It is, and especially, like he said, if we take the gavel of leadership away from Nancy Pelosi, the reign of terror, the endless investigations, those end. And I would argue that regardless of the number of new House members that go in as Republicans in 2023, it's the type of Republicans we are going to see. These are battle-tested, ready to fight for freedom, for their constituents, and fight for America first. And so it's not just going to be the number, it's the type of Republicans that we have elected across this nation from every background and walk of life, and they're going to take Washington by storm in the new year. Joe Biden has met his match.
Brilliant analysis. So great to speak to you both. Former senior Trump advisor and Getter, current Getter CEO Jason Miller, and former Ronald Reagan advisor and Trump admin staffer Penny Grande. Thank you so much. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, does the UK need to free itself of the ECHR and lefty lawyers to deal with the small boats crisis, including the 12,000 illegal migrants coming from Albania? Well, columnist extraordinaire Rod Liddle reminds the left that Albania is not a dangerous country but a holiday hotspot. He's uncancelled at 10:40. As nurses vote in favour of the first nationwide strike in their union's 106-year history, is it morally wrong for healthcare workers to abandon their posts? That's the big debate with my superstar panel next. Tonight, I'm joined by Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks and Ashley James. With a police officer injured in a lorry crash during their latest protest, the middle-class mob at Just Stop Oil continue to infuriate the public with their eco-extremism. So why is liberal elite darling Emily Maitlis seriously comparing them to history's greatest civil rights movements?
I don't think anyone would call Emily Davison grandstanding when she ran in front of a horse. And I think the only difference is the time.
No, it's not, Emily. Plus, a disgraceful protester blamed the slave trade on King Charles and hurled eggs at him today. But But with the monarch's own goddaughter publicly pressuring him to, quote, discuss how things can be repaired, should King Charles reject any suggestion of reparations? We'll discuss both those huge stories in our Media Buzz at 10:30. Plus, after the controversial new series of The Crown finally drops, how can Netflix justify airing hurtful, not to mention, like, untrue storylines so soon after Her Late Majesty's death? And how much longer can hypocritical Prince Harry stay silent? Well, star Daily Telegraph columnist Celia Walden has watched, so you don't have to. She's live with me at 10:20. You'll also get a first look at tomorrow's newspapers as they drop, and as ever, brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass before the night is out. But before all of that, the news at 10 with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Dan. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. The Northern Ireland Secretary has denied resigning from the government, blaming a fake email sent to press outlets. Posting on Twitter, Chris Heaton-Harris described the claims as totally untrue and complete and utter tosh. He also urged Twitter owner Elon Musk to eliminate fake news from the social media platform. The claims come just a day after the minister extended the deadline to call a fresh Stormont election and announced plans to cut Assembly members' pay. The Royal College of Nursing is urging the government to take action over pay or face disruption across the country. Earlier, the RCN announced the first national strike in its 106-year history, with 300,000 members voting in favour of walkouts. The action is set to affect the majority of NHS employers, although emergency care will not be affected. Responding, Health Secretary Steve Barclay said nurses' pay demands are out of step with the UK's current economic circumstances.
The key issue is one of fairness. We've offered £1,400. We've accepted in full the recommendations of the independent pay review body. We gave an increase last year above what most other public sector workers received. And we also need to recognise the economic circumstances in which we currently face.
Well, today the Prime Minister has been insisting he didn't know about specific concerns over Sir Gavin Williamson when he appointed him to his cabinet. The MP left his post last night, saying allegations of bullying were becoming a distraction to the good work of the government. He denies any wrongdoing. During PMQs earlier, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, criticised Sir Gavin and questioned Rishi Sunak's judgment. The Prime Minister said it was absolutely right that Sir Gavin resigned. The Home Secretary is urging police chiefs to focus on what she calls common sense policing and not politically correct distractions. Speaking at a conference in Westminster, Suella Braverman said the public expects the police to be tackling crime, not debating topics such as gender on Twitter. She also urged the force to reconsider police action that could be seen as woke. A 23-year-old man has been arrested after throwing eggs at King Charles and Camilla, Queen Consort, in York. The incident happened as they arrived at York Minster to unveil the statue of the late Queen. It's understood a protester threw 3 eggs at them, all of which missed the royal couple. Several police officers at Micklegate Bar were seen restraining a suspect on the ground immediately after that incident. And US President Joe Biden says he will decide on whether he will make a re-election bid early on next year. Mr. Biden says he has intentions to run, but he'll have to discuss the decision with his family over the holidays.
My judgment of running when I announce, if I announce, my intention is that I run again. But I'm a great respecter of fate, and this is ultimately a family decision. I think everybody wants me to run, but we're going to have discussions about it. And I don't feel any hurry one way or another to make that judgment, today, tomorrow, or whenever, no matter what my predecessor does.
We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're watching GB News, the People's Channel. Back now to Dan.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. First front pages are in. Let's get straight to them. The Metro leads with food banks reaching crisis point following an increase of 320,000 first-time users in 6 months. 40% of parcels reportedly going to children. The Independent leads on Russia ordering troops to retreat from the key city of Kherson, a major setback for Moscow in the Ukraine war. The Eye leads with number 10, clashing with nurses over the 6 months of planned NHS health strikes. And actually, we're going to get to that just now with my superstar panel who are back with me. Former editor, current columnist for the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. So, as we just saw there, with hard-up Brits already facing a winter of discontent, nurses set to add insult to injury by walking off the job this Christmas, further crippling the NHS. In an unprecedented move today, they voted to strike over pay, action that could see thousands of routine ops cancelled, chaos at all corners of the health service and hospitals operating a bank holiday service. More than 300,000 members were balloted by the Royal College of Nursing in the first vote on industrial action in the union's 106-year history, after ministers refused to meet their pay request of 5% over inflation. That means 15%, effectively. Number 10 argued the demands would effectively cost the taxpayer £9 billion, with Education Secretary Gillian Keegan branding it pointless.
I don't think there's any point in going on strike anyway. I think it's, you know, when we're in a position where we've got millions and millions of people waiting for operations or for help, waiting for medical help, and the only people who can give that medical help are largely our nurses and our doctors. I would urge the nurses to, you know, to continue those discussions, but the reality is, if we gave massive above-inflation rises, not only would we have to raise a lot more money, but it would actually fuel inflation. This is the problem. We really have to tackle inflation.
And it doesn't stop with nurses. Approximately 1 million NHS staff members, including junior doctors, midwives, ICT staff and porters, are either being balloted or expected to be balloted on strike action over pay rises. So, I mean, Adam Brooks, I'm sorry, I have a real issue with this. I cannot believe that these folk who are there to protect us, who know how backlogged the NHS already is because of the terrible decisions that were made over COVID, are actually going to put more lives at risk, delay cancer operations. I find it morally repugnant.
It's completely and utterly morally wrong. During COVID, we were told if it saves just one life, well, this is going to cost many lives. This is going to delay treatments. It's going to delay diagnosis. You know, this is really serious. And again, as the report said, wage push inflation is a problem here. If we push their wages up, across the board, wages will have to go up.
Of course. And they keep saying, Adam, and all of the media falls into this trap, 5% over inflation. But let's be real, because if it's you or I talking, if it's someone who's not in the public service, that means a 15% wage increase. Well, I'm sorry, tell me any employer at the moment who you're going to walk in and say, I want a 50% pay rise. They're going to laugh you out the office.
Most employers haven't got any money to give pay rises.
And the country doesn't have any money.
No.
And also, if we keep doing these public sector pay rises, inflation just shoots up.
That's it,
higher.
wage push inflation. You know, we're going to see inflation through the roof. It's going to cause a longer recession, a deeper recession. You know, this is going to make people poorer. Look, I'm all for fair pay, but this is going to cost lives. This is the main thing.
Well, it is. And Dawn, look, I know how you feel about the right to strike, and you have, you know, real unionist background, and I understand that. But, Dawn, surely you can see here that there has to be limits on the right to strike when it comes to key service workers who keep us safe.
Look, I mean, where do you draw the line? I do believe that everybody has the right to take industrial action, and I don't see why medical staff, nurses should be any different. I mean, everyone goes, oh, they should do it for the love of it. But, I mean, no, I mean, you know, the fact that we...
But what about doing it to keep patients alive?
Well, I mean, yes, of course, but Dan, we don't pay them enough. The problem here is not the nurses asking for more money. I mean, you go into nursing and you're paid £20,000 a year, and then you can end up paying £3,000 to park your car at a hospital. In what way does that make any sense?
It's disgraceful.
It doesn't. It is disgraceful. And I've got 2 people in my immediate family who are currently fighting cancer. Their treatment will be effective.
Yes.
So, yeah, I completely understand the point that nurses should not go on strike. However, they do need to be paid a fair wage, and they are currently not getting that. What needs to happen here is we need to stop treating the NHS like some sort of cult that we can't criticise and reorganise it.
Absolutely.
There are 500 pen pushers are on over £100,000 a year. The amount of wastebanders I've experienced recently with the cancer...
Including lots of diversity advisors, by the way.
Medical equipment was sent through to our house. We said, we don't need it, send it back. No, just get rid of it. We're just... The NHS just asking me to destroy stuff that could go to somebody else that needs treatment. The amount of waste is ridiculous. The amount we are paying pen pushers is ridiculous. The nurses need more money, but it should come from the top of the NHS.
Now, Ashley, you actually think this is a heroic decision by the nurses?
I don't think it's heroic. I feel very sorry for them that they are in the position that they are having.
But you support them doing this, don't you?
I 100% support them striking.
So what if it was one of your family members who was denied?
It will affect family members. I also have
about to have a baby.
Yeah, I also have friends and relatives who are either NHS nurses or used to be and have left. And here's the thing: they have faced a real terms pay cut of 20% in a decade. And here's a very important point. We can talk about COVID and costs, but they were warned, the Conservative government were warned in 2015 that this would happen unless they started to train more nurses. And, by the way, this came after 2011 when they slashed the number of nursing degree places they would fund. And when they were warned that there would be a nursing staffing crisis, because bear in mind, a lot of the stress that nurses are under is because they are having to do extra work because there's 40,000 people lacking in that industry. Hang on.
We are where we are,
The health minister said back then that basically they didn't need... They needed fewer nurses training because it would be... otherwise, they'd be oversupplying the nursing workforce. So the reason we are in this crisis now is because of Conservatives, and it should...
Yes, but
it is morally wrong.
We
what is
are
morally
where we
wrong
are
is that
here
we
now, though, OK?
Yeah.
And what I want to know is whether you think it's fair in the current situation when ordinary folk are facing massive tax rises to ask for a above-inflation pay rise by 5%. Surely a reasonable request would say we want a pay rise in line with inflation at the moment because we understand that the country is broke and ordinary people are suffering. That would be reasonable.
Negotiations always come down. The issue is the Royal College of Nurses boss, Pat Cullen, says the last person she had a negotiation with was Sadiq Khan. So
was that
they're not engaged.
Javid,
so they're not actually engaging at all in any negotiations. So that's why they're in the position they're in. And what I think is morally wrong is that we were all there clapping for them. They were risking their lives in a pandemic, which at the time they thought might kill them. And 1 in 3 are struggling to afford food and heating. 1 in 8 using food banks.
But I know that. But there's lots of also heroic supermarket workers who worked every single day of the pandemic as well. But they put their lives at the same level of risk. And believe me, they are not currently about to receive a 15% pay rise. This is our money. We are broke. We have to be realistic. And also, don't put our safety at threat.
We want healthcare. And here's the thing: if we do nothing, more and more nurses are going to continue to leave because mentally they cannot give duty of care.
But a lot are going to private agencies that work less hours.
And I understand that.
So here's the other
but to
thing.
me, Ashley, I'm not even disagreeing with the fundamentals of your argument, Ashley, but what I'm disagreeing with are these tactics, because the country cannot be constantly held to ransom, especially when you're talking about the health and the safety of our citizens and the fact that they need cancer operations and the fact that there's a massive backlog. And look, I love nurses, I love health professionals, and this is going to change my view. And I've heard from lots of nurses today who are disgusted by their fellow nurses for putting people's safety at threat, and I am disgusted.
Then we need to put that anger towards the government who are putting nurses' safety at risk. And the reason we have
I'm angry about the government about a lot of things. I'm angry about the government about a lot of things. But nurses are there to save our lives if they want to do that job, and walking off the job puts lives at risk.
We have exploited their good nature for long enough, and they are crumbling. The reason that ambulances are queuing down the road is because there are not enough nurses.
Some of the vilest tweets I ever get are from people from within the NHS. I'm just saying that as well. Not everyone because they work for the NHS, is a saint. Let me just say this. You know,
Yeah, but
the majority of them are beautiful people that do a great job. Let's not hold them up as some sort of saints.
imagine the
You know,
stress
this is going to
that
cost
nurses,
lives, Stan.
doctors are under. It's costing lives.
And actually,
costing lives.
I actually disagree with a lot of the sort of, as Adam's talking about, the fetishisation of NHS workers, because actually it was everyone that pulled together in those early months, and I have just as much pride in the Uber drivers, in the bus drivers, the supermarket workers. So what I'm saying to you now is that we are being let down by this decision by the nurses today. I'm going to be honest about that. And
the country cannot afford it, then. That is the bottom line. It cannot afford it.
But we could afford the test and trace system, which
Well, no, and believe me, at the time I was saying that was a massive white elephant.
If we do nothing, we're going to continue to lose nurses and doctors, and the healthcare system is going
Ashley
to collapse.
James, Adam Brooks, Dawn Neeson, fascinating debate. Thank you so much. But coming up, should King Charles reject any suggestion of reparations for the slave trade? And why is the favourite of the Liberal elite, Emily Maitlis, seriously comparing Just Stop Oil to history's greatest civil rights movement? We'll tackle both of those stories when the Media Buzz returns. But first, as the new series of The Crown airs scenes showing Prince Philip pursuing an affair, how can Netflix justify airing hurtful and untrue storylines so soon after Queen Elizabeth II's death? And how much longer can hypocritical Prince Harry stay silent? Star Daily Telegraph columnist Celia Walden gives her review. Think it might be scathing. Straight after the break.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other pay-per-review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, the moment the palace has been dreading is finally here. Series 5 of Netflix drama The Crown has dropped, and it hasn't held back on the sordid details. Following furious backlash over its accuracy and cruel timing, streaming mere months after the Queen's death, the controversial season focuses on the breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage in the 1990s, including the Princess's infamous panorama interview and the private moments leading up to her death. And not content with airing all the dirty royal laundry they could legitimately find, show bosses have also leaned heavily on creative licence, with damaging storylines like Charles trying to force his mother to abdicate and Prince Philip having an affair with high society beauty Penny Natchbull, which has been strenuously denied. Despite Netflix refusing to add a fiction disclaimer, insisting viewers know everything they see is not true, fans across the globe are gobbling up the salacious royal tales as fact. And where is Prince Harry, by the way, as his family get dragged through the Netflix mud? Well, he's sitting quietly in his Montecito mansion, continuing to benefit from the streaming giant's deep pockets and commonisation. I would say, actually, rank commercialisation of his mother's death. Well, Star Daily Telegraph columnist Celia Wootton joins me now. And Celia, I have to say, look, Netflix, they are a private company, right? They can do what they want, and I'm not going to lie, I will watch every episode of The Crown this weekend. But it makes me so mad, Celia, that Harry, who has spent years lecturing people like you and lecturing people like me in the media for exploiting his family, for bringing up the memory of his mother, is prepared to work for a company who will do this to his family so soon after the Queen's death, or the late Queen's death.
Well, I mean, it's the actual sort of literal selling your soul to the devil, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
As you say, I mean, the Crown is a work of art, and I enjoy every minute of it. The acting is superb. It's a beautiful thing apart from anything else. But again, as you say, there is no disclaimer. If there were something saying, look, this is all, you know, we've added various bits, which almost everybody does do now. Every book does it too, by the way. So they're really sticking their heels in, the producers, by not putting that disclaimer in. And so for Harry to go along with this, particularly when, as you say again, when it's about the mother that he quite rightly is incredibly defensive and sensitive about, it just makes no sense at all.
I mean, Celia, they are literally recreating the death, the car accident, and then the moment where he walks behind her coffin, famously in procession in 1997. Now, that moment, he says, destroyed his mental health forevermore, and it's the reason why he'll never forgive the establishment, and he'll never forgive the royal family. But he has no problem with Netflix cashing in on it. It's just rank hypocrisy, and I think it shows that as long as he's getting the big bucks, he'll throw his morals out the window.
Well, apparently so, because as we heard this week, he had early on, I think it was after season 2 of The Crown, he had said to Angela Levin, I believe, had said, I really need to talk to them and make sure that this stops before it reaches me. So you could actually interpret that as being quite a selfish thing in terms of, I don't want to be involved in this, everyone else can be. But even if it were for that, purely that reason, he is now in it after all. So it, one wonders what's going to happen. But I think that already he has apparently asked them to postpone his and Meghan's docuseries, which was meant to be coming out in December, apparently. And he didn't think that was a good idea, because what with it being at the same time as The Crown. And so that's now apparently been moved until January, which will clash with Spare,
his book.
The book we're all looking forward to reading. But all of it just smacks of, I mean, it's a sort of a disastrous sort of snowball of events, isn't it?
Well, it is, I think. It is, Celia, because what it shows to me is that he doesn't give a damn about the royal family, because you know there would have been an expectation from the late Queen that the entire family rallied at this time to get behind Charles. And look, at the end of the day, if Harry really cared about his dad, he could have demanded to Netflix and to the publisher, look, I'm delaying all of this until after my father's coronation. And you know what? I would have come here on this show and I would have said, good on you, Harry. For the first time in about 3 years, you've actually done something that isn't just about yourself. But he wasn't prepared to do it.
But he could, as you say, he could have redeemed himself overnight. And by the way, I still think that actually in his position, he is sort of redeemable still. Although, if things go the way we think, and he really doesn't step in or say anything and stays completely silent whilst taking vast bags of cash from Netflix, then, nobody can take anything he says seriously ever again.
No, the problem is, and I think this is why he's done himself a disservice, although I'm very glad about it, he's going to spend all of this, or a lot of time in this Netflix series, and a lot of time in his book, slamming the horrible British media, when actually he's now part of the American media, which has commercialised his mother's death. So, to be honest, anything he says about the media now in his book, I'm just going to say, mate, who gives a damn? It rings completely hollow because you are just as bad.
Very simply, he could never, ever use the word exploitation again. It's as simple as that.
But he will.
Without people laughing. Oh, he will, of course. And so will she.
But the great thing is we can laugh now.
We can laugh, and I think it's not just us. I think it is a general consensus. If you talk to people, to the point where people are sort of almost like, well, do you know what? They've sort of discounted them as being in any way serious figures.
Yeah, we get our weekly dose of Meghan's victimisation and her Spotify podcast. We're going to get the TV series. Then we're going to get the Woe Is Me book. And actually, I think you're right. They're just a bit of a figure of fun for now, and that is exactly what they didn't want to be, and so I'm all for that, really.
It is, and again, and also they have wrung the sponge dry at that point. Where do you, there's nothing left, is there?
Nope, it is a case of diminishing returns. Star Daily Telegraph columnist Celia Auden, thank you so much, Celia. We will speak soon. But coming up, does the UK need to free itself of the ECHR and lefty lawyers to deal with the small boats crisis, including the 12,000 illegal migrants coming from popular holiday destination Albania? Rod Liddle uncancelled soon. But first, as his own goddaughter comes out in favour of reparations, will King Charles be pressured to pay for the slave trade? And is Liberal darling Emily Maitlis seriously comparing Just Stop Oil to history's greatest civil rights movement? Media Buzz with all of that next.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky. That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg. And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Let's return to tomorrow's News Tonight now on our Media Buzz. Lots of front pages in. The Guardian actually lead on the midterm elections. Congress remains in the balance following a better result for the Democrats and Biden than expected. He's repeated, Biden, his claim tonight that he intends to run for president in 2024. He'll decide for sure next year. Will he be awake? Probably not. The Sun leads with Jennifer Aniston's secret battle to be a mum. Opening up about her heartbreak for the first time, the childless 53-year-old Friends star says she spent years trying everything, including IVF. Good on her for talking about it. Daily Star reacts to today's historic nurses' strike vote by declaring "Ooh, matron," referencing the timeless Carry On films. The Daily Telegraph also leads with the planned nurses' strike as Number 10 hits out at their unreasonable demands for a 17.6% pay rise. So actually it wasn't 15% like I estimated earlier, actually 17.6%, even bigger. Suala attacks police for failing to stop eco-mob is the headline leading the Express. They're of course referring to our dear friends at Just Stop Oil, who were here earlier. But more on the Media Buzz now with tonight's superstar panel. Former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Now, there was a disgraceful moment this morning during the King's walkabout in New York where he had eggs thrown at him by a member of the public. Look. Unfortunately, King Charles came away unscathed, while the protester who hurled the eggs was heard shouting, "This country was built on the blood of slaves." But elsewhere, the monarch has ended up with egg on his face after his own goddaughter, Fiona Compton, revealed their personal conversations about how Britain can repair the damage done by the slave trade. Compton, the daughter of a former Prime Minister of St Lucia, was showing the King her slave-themed artwork in Leeds yesterday and later told reporters he is ready to have active conversations about Britain's relationship with the slave trade, future plans about having honest and true discussions about how things can be repaired and how Britain can make some real steps. So let me get this right. In a week where at COP27 we're told to spend £1 trillion as penitence for the Industrial Revolution, our monarch is also being sucked into the Western Liberal guilt obsession with reparations. Well, good luck sorting out the cost of living while the woke mob make us pay off the cost of history crisis. So, Dawn Neeson, I mean, look, this might be something that the king just says to his goddaughter as a sort of way to fob her off. But the fact that she has now gone public, betraying that private conversation, I think is a huge worry, because it feels to me like King Charles, and you know I'm giving him a chance, I am giving him a chance, and I thought he did a very good job after his mother's death, and he is grieving, I'm giving him a chance. But I'm worried, Dawn, this feels like perhaps he's opening up the door for discussion on reparations, which is something that the UK cannot even consider.
You know what? If we are going to start spending loads of money on the slave trade, I would rather spend it on the modern-day slave trade. The women being sex trafficked, the children being abused in Africa, digging up the resources for the natural green batteries.
Well said.
So I would rather the money spent on that rather than something that happened 300-400 years ago that we can't do anything about. The point here is educate people. Make sure it's taught in schools. Slavery, it was truly abhorrent, and no one's disagreeing with that.
And which country abolished slavery, by the way?
We actually did. Yeah, the UK, or Britain, Great Britain as we were called at the time.
Empire, yeah.
And the last country to abolish slavery is Mauritania, which is, in Africa. So, I mean, it wasn't just us that were involved. That we seem to be the one constantly navel-gazing about it. Many countries in Europe, and they always seem to gloss over the fact that so many African countries were also engaged in trafficking and enslaving their own populations. Why are they going to start paying money back?
Well. Like Libya, lots
it's still going on.
Yeah, it's still going on. So, you know, why we can't change the past down. We can learn from it and we can move on. What we need to do now, if we're going to spend money on slavery, stop the modern-day slave trade.
Ashley James, is it fair for King Charles to want to have a conversation about reparations, if that is indeed what he said to his goddaughter?
I think he's very welcome to have a conversation about reparations. I know lots of...
But it would mean us paying, by the way, not him.
Yeah, so this is what I'm going to say. Personally, and I'm sure I can speak for everyone on this sofa, like, my family never had slaves. We went back as far as we could in our family history. We were working class northerners. Like, we never benefited from any...
Likewise.
If the royal family want to have those, and I would say important conversations, because, you know, it has affected lots of Commonwealth nations, and it's obviously something that is coming up when they go on these tours. It's estimated that the royal family have a personal wealth of 28 billion. I imagine lots of that came from benefiting from the empire. So if they want to have those conversations, then it has to be from their personal
I agree
wealth.
with that.
It cannot be from taxpayers. She's completely right, isn't she?
I can't believe I'm agreeing with you.
But the problem is, Adam, that won't be what it's about.
But
it will be us mugs.
Let me just tell you.
And as Ashley says, we're all from working class families. None of us had slaves.
I refuse my tax money going to reparations on something that happened.
But you wouldn't get a choice.
Hundreds of years.
But if this is something that Ed Miliband and Labour decide to pursue,
it's not happening. Let me tell you this now as well. Reparations, slavery reparations, will further damage race relations in this country. You know, it will be irreparable damage, because the taxpayers will not want to pay for something that happened 200 or 300 years ago, right? And it will cause murders. Look, slavery was and is abhorrent. No, as Dawn said, no one agrees with slavery. We'll call it out. It needs better education.
Yes, and that's why the British Empire abolished it.
Exactly that. But we need better education. America. We need to highlight it more. I agree that kids, it does need to be highlighted more and taught more.
Yeah, but of course we need to learn about history.
Can I just say as well, Dan, why are these protesters always posh little white kids?
Yeah, without
tell me
because they're middle-class champagne socialists who have well-off parents who have brought them up to be. Yeah.
But like with Just Stop Oil, we are getting a trend now of posh little white kids causing problems and causing the taxpayer problems.
But there is a white saviour guilt complex going on, isn't there?
Yeah, there's not many black folk, working class black folk, gluing themselves to motorway gantry bridges, is there?
No, but the thing is, when it comes to Charles, though, what I'm concerned about is this. You know, they said loose lips sink ships back in the day, and you wouldn't have the Queen been caught out having an inappropriate conversation about the late Queen, I'm talking about, opening the door to reparations.
But he's not said anything publicly.
No, he hasn't.
He
hasn't. But this is his goddaughter. She's spoken publicly. She clearly felt confident enough to do that. And I just worry, because remember, we've already seen him forcing himself into the conversation on COP27. he has to keep this
Dan,
woke
we've got a
stuff to
woke
himself.
king.
Yeah, and
there's no beating about the bush.
I just want
Our
to be in
king
denial about that, Adam.
He's woke, and we've got to get used to it, and we're going to hear more of this sort of stuff.
Yeah, but it's worrying.
You know, it is
it's worrying because the consequences of that wokery will be on us.
The Queen kept a dignified distance.
Oh, and the Queen
didn't
wasn't
she?
woke, was she?
Absolutely. And but you know, I thought the same when I saw who was it? He was hugged and kissed Stella McCartney at that sort of fashion do or whatever it was the other day, and I thought the Queen wouldn't have behaved like that.
No.
Now I get this moving with the modern day times, but
well, look, as I say, I'm still in the period. He's mourning. I'm going to wait until the coronation, and I will judge him after that. But Adam Brooks just declaring we have a woke.
We do have a woke king
on the throne.
We do.
Woke king, goodness me. Now, I always knew former BBC darling Emily Maitlis was biased as hell, but she's now proven she's delusional too by comparing the eco-zealots of Just Stop Oil to, wait for it, civil rights heroes, Rosa Parks and the suffragettes in her insufferable podcast. But that's not even the best part. No, that's reserved for the sharpest U-turn in podcasting history, as Maitlis goes from not only defending but encouraging Just Stop Oil's green extremism to, well, have a listen.
One person's grandstanding is another person's civil rights action. I don't think anyone thinks Rosa Parks was grandstanding. I don't think anyone would call Emily Davison grandstanding when she ran in front of a horse. And I think the only difference is the time.
Time to thank our partner Virgin Atlantic for supporting the podcast.
When you fly with Virgin Atlantic, it just feels that little bit more special because they've always been like that from day one.
What a hypocrite.
Sorry, Emily. I didn't realise giant jet planes were on Greta Thunberg's approved mode of transport. And doesn't that just show you, Adam, absolute virtue-signalling hypocrites who will take the coin from carbon-guzzling jets the moment that they need to pay for their shitty little podcast?
They don't surprise us anymore. Damn. No comment.
Want to weigh in?
Pardon?
Do you want to weigh in?
What really annoys me, I'm getting away from the foul and abusive language. I'd like to apologise on Dan's behalf. But I would just
repost Watershed.
I would just like to say that, you know, this constant comparison to Just Stop Oil to the suffragettes really drives me mad because the suffragettes were women that did not have a political voice in any way.
They were denied democracy.
They were denied democracy.
They were heroes.
I would like
they were
to know
heroes.
what Just Stop Oil are about, and they didn't make any argument that made me feel compelled.
They're hysterics.
Literally, Just Stop Oil at this moment have the great and the good, allegedly, of this planet discussing their very issues at COP27. You cannot compare what they do to the suffragettes. I'm sorry, that's appalling.
Totally agree.
From a woman as well.
Ashley James, Adam Brooks, Dawn Neeson, thank you so much. Coming up, the crowning moment of the show as we reveal tonight's greatest Briton and Union Jackass. But first, stand by. Rod Liddle is up. And we're asking the question, does the UK need to free itself with the ECHR and lefty lawyers to deal with the small boats crisis? First, though, very quick look at what's coming up in tomorrow's show. Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, as King Charles comes under attack from all angles and Prince Andrew gets a potential lifeline after a bombshell admission from his accuser Virginia Giuffre, my royal masterminds Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier break down the latest royal headlines. Plus, there'll be full-throttled opinion from comedy icon and free speech advocate Graham Linehan, man of the people Charlie Lawson, and returning to my superstar panel, loose women's star Carol McGiffin. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. on GB News. But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, just what should we do about the do-gooder lawyers who continue to block government attempts to stop the invasion of illegal migrants on Britain? Some 40,000 have crossed the channel this year alone. As you know, I've declared this a national emergency for over a year now because swaths of them are fighting-age Albanian men who Border Force say will work in our drug and sex trades. Albania, of course, is a NATO country with ambitions to join the EU, and my next guest highlights it's a popular holiday destination for Brits too. In fact, some 120,000 of us visit Albania each year. So, Rod Liddle, what exactly are these folk fleeing from?
They're fleeing from a very, very peaceful country which has got beautiful scenery, a lovely coastline and a very agreeable climate. I might flee there myself I'm tempted to. The thing which interests me is that we only really started, or at least the mainstream media, the BBC and people like Emily, very well named Mateless, only started getting interested in Albania and the refugee crisis when a couple were dumped on a pavement in London overnight, or when there was overcrowding at Manston. Otherwise, they have no interest whatsoever in this crisis which we have. And their answer is always the same, that we've got to be nicer to the migrants. And at the same time, they resent any attempt to stop the boats from actually crossing the channel. Now, this is hypocrisy. This is lefty hypocrisy at its best. Because if you stop the boats crossing the channel, fewer people will die. If you encourage more boats to cross the channel, more people will die. And I've had so many arguments with Liberals over this in the past, that actually what they're arguing for is for more deaths. Because that is undoubtedly the answer as to what will happen if you allow these boats to continue crossing the channel. And they are very exultant, and you will hear them on the Today programme every day, and you will hear them on World at One, and you'll see them in The Guardian. The lawyers and indeed the charities who look after and indeed facilitate the crossing of the channel, some of these charities, always trying to argue simultaneously that there isn't a great increase in the number who are coming over, and that they should all be allowed in anyway. I mean, it is an absurdity. What they're actually doing is arguing that perhaps we shouldn't take in the disabled, the women, the elderly, the children from countries where these people have actually made proper claims for asylum. Just allow these 28-year-old men into the country anyway. It's an absurdity, and it gets right at the heart of the Liberal kind of non sequitur argument. They are wrong on every issue. We do need to take refugees in. It's our kind of moral duty to do so. But the people we should take in are the most vulnerable, not the very young and lithe young men who climb off those boats in Dover every morning and who come from a democracy which enjoys rather nice weather and no war in sight. We should be taking in people who are genuinely vulnerable. But this doesn't seem to get through to the Liberals. All they can do is whine about how it's a bit overcrowded at Manston.
Stop the boats, and they certainly don't understand that, or they choose not to understand that. But I think, Rod, you're completely right to point out why the coverage of this crisis is so wrong, because there seems to be no concern from the BBC, for example, about the illegal migrants, many of whom are criminals, who are causing great pain to British citizens, and also, by the way, involving, again, innocent Brits in the drug trade and the prostitution rings that they are here to run.
No, you're absolutely right, mate. And it makes me wonder why the BBC in particular, but also much of the mainstream media, including much of the press, why are they so incurious about the damage caused to the country by these incomes? Why aren't there reporters, in Dover and Folkestone talking to local people about how they feel? I've heard one such bunch of vox pops from Folkestone, and that was a couple of weeks ago, where indeed the local people said we daren't go out at night. That was it. Why is no one actually crunching down the numbers as to, or investigating the fact that in Kent at the moment, in that southern part of Kent, no children over the age of 11 will have a place in a state school next year because they are all taken up with asylum seekers. It is remarkable that our journalists are as incurious about this as they were about the stuff that happened in Rotherham and Rochdale and Blackburn and those northern mill towns. It's the same lack of curiosity which in the end, causes tragedies to happen.
No, it does. But unfortunately, Rod, and I'm pretty sure you agree with me on this, it really doesn't look like this new administration under Rishi Sunak has the political will, the guts, the balls, you might say, to tackle this issue head on. I believe that Suella Braverman does, the Home Secretary. I'm a huge fan of hers. She wants to leave the ECHR. She wants to ignore the lefty lawyers. But this has to come from the top, doesn't it? And what we've seen from Sunak over the past week is just what we saw unsuccessfully from Boris, which was, let's trust Macron.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that we're having better relations with France, because it's always good to have decent relations with your neighbour, apart from Wales, obviously. So that's a kind of...
We love the Welsh.
A little joke, look you. But there is another problem with Rishi, which is, and I think he's doing a good job at the moment, but there is a problem with Rishi, which is, of course, his Indian heritage probably means that he is not going to clamp down on the number of, because he wishes to preserve a trade deal as well, clamp down on the enormous numbers of people who are coming in from the subcontinent. So, no, I don't think that asylum seekers and immigration is anywhere near the top of Rishi's agenda. But if he looked at the opinion polls, he would see that, people do care about this.
No, indeed. Columnist extraordinaire, Rod Liddle. Hope all of our brilliant Welsh viewers didn't just switch off at that moment. Rod Liddle, we'll speak next week. Rod, thank you so much. Time now to reveal today's greatest Briton and Union Jackass. My superstar panel return. Dawn Neeson, who's your greatest Briton nominee?
Mine is Susanna Reid for challenging Just Stop Oil on Good Morning Britain this morning, taking them to task and stopping the interview because they were being absolute idiots. And it's something you don't often see on mainstream TV programmes. And just occasionally, I know, Dan, she uses language as profane as you do. So, Susanna Reid, go girl.
And we had that silly little man on earlier and played him the moment, so hopefully you were watching then. Adam Brooks, your nominee.
Same sort of theme. My greatest Briton is Thomas Skinner, who was on earlier. He's a friend of mine, for his viral van video that perfectly highlighted these Just Stop Oil idiots.
And Ashley James, your greatest Briton nominee.
My greatest Briton, I wanted to show support to the striking nurses. I clapped for the NHS during the pandemic. I support and love the NHS, and I know it was a difficult decision, so I feel like we...
You are so wrong. Do you know who I back? I back the nurses today who made the moral decision to vote against the strikes and are disgusted with their colleagues who are going to put lives at risk. That's who I back, those nurses. But I'm actually going to go with Thomas Skinner, Adam's mate, who with me earlier took on those Just Stop Oil lunatics. And if you missed it, then you're going to have to check it out on YouTube later, because it was feisty stuff. Union Jackass time now. Dawn Neeson.
There might be a theme to this, mightn't there? It's a sort of a group one. It's at Just Stop Oil, funny enough, for being the irritating, deluded idiots that they are. And as for the person that leads them, and who, well, is just a cultist, isn't he, basically? I'm just glad we don't live in America and these people aren't running around with guns.
Adam Brooks, your nominee.
My Union Jackass is Jeremy Hunt for being the Chancellor that's going to tax this country into ruin and oblivion. He's also muting the idea of raising inheritance tax, which is already fourth highest in the world. And, I want to leave my kids as much as I can when I'm gone. And I don't need someone like Jeremy Hunt taking that all away from them.
It's quite nice to literally clocking around slang, though, isn't it?
Exactly. No comment.
Ashley James, your nominee.
Mine is the Qatar World Cup ambassador, or a Qatari World Cup ambassador, who came out publicly and said that gay people was a damage in the mind, and we're still waiting for World Cup organisers to come out and condemn his words.
No, do you know what? That was absolutely despicable. What I thought what was so interesting about that interview, Ashley, is it showed the true colours of Qatar. And I've been speaking about it for many weeks, and that's why the virtue signalers like Gary Neville and Gary Lineker, who are taking the Qatari coin and then preaching to us, really are despicable. Oh, my goodness, I love all of those choices, all excellent tonight. But I have to be honest, I've got to go with Dawn, because, as you know, Just Stop Oil have wound me up so much. These are eco-terrorists. When they were on my sofa earlier, they basically said, in no uncertain terms, that they are prepared to let the British people die for their political cause. That makes them terrorists. Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks, Ashley James, my superstar panel, thank you so much. I'm back again tomorrow night at 9 p.m, of course. Headliners is next, though. Good night.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
on radio, and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Ray Addison. Headliners is coming up, but first here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. The Northern Ireland Secretary has denied resigning from the government, blaming a fake email sent to press outlets. Posting on Twitter, Chris Heaton-Harris described the claims as totally untrue and complete and utter tosh. He also urged Twitter's owner, Elon Musk, to eliminate fake news from the social media platform. The claims come just a day after the minister extended the deadline to call a fresh Stormont election and announced plans to cut Assembly members' pay. The Royal College of Nursing